And we are live.
Howdy.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Aquaball's channel. We have tonight, we're gonna got Italian Cichlid Association news by Chewy Ltd, which is he's right there, Italian Cichlid, and Bob Kaler with the Kaler's Aquatic. So, welcome, everybody.
Thank you, Aquaballs. And I would like Bob to introduce himself, and then I will handle the presentation like I did on Anthony's week.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So for anybody that doesn't know me, I'm just a fish keeper. Kept fish almost all my life, fresh and saltwater. And my channel is Kaler's Aquatics and Exotics. And it's going to be Kaler's Aquatics and Reptiles. About to break into a reptile stream with three other reptile keepers that also have fish. So always something going on. That's saltwater too behind me. So it's a fish house here. And thanks for having me up.
Now,
You're
Bob,
welcome.
first off, I want to ask you, when did you exactly start keeping fish, and what was the first fish that you kept?
Well, that's easy because I get asked that a lot. I turned 7 on November 30th many years ago, and 60 years ago almost. And since my birthday is so close to Christmas, November 30th, I always got my presents at Christmas too. We were poor. So I wanted a fish tank, so I got a 5-gallon fish tank. And Woolworths, back then was where you got your fish. There weren't really fish stores. Um, So I got 2 pink fish that were really cool that kept going in and out of a little house. And the lady at Woolworths gave me their little house too. And they were pink convicts. The next morning they had a fried tornado everywhere. So I had to take them all back. But guppies then were my second one, the second day.
So I'm going to ask Aquaballs the same question, George. What age were you when you started keeping fish, and what was your first fish?
When I started keeping fish, I remember my father brought me a personal tank at grandma's house. It was like a 20 gallon and it was goldfish. I was around 8 years old.
Right. So have you always kept fish, George, or did you go through periods of times where you did not keep fish and then came back to it?
So back home, I didn't keep fish for long term because I was a little kid, didn't know much about the nitrogen cycle. I killed those goldfish by adding methylene blue into the water, a lot of it. And so when I came to the state, I met my wife. Uh, she was keeping a 10 gallon with full of guppies in it. And when we moved together, I got a 29-gallon cichlid tank. And then from that tank on, you can see the whole thing started me.
Now, I want to get into the major subject, well, one of the first subjects, and that is the Italian Cichlid Association. And I'm sort of off in the Rio Negro area, and I took a wrong turn and I headed down to Argentina. And lo and behold, there's the new cichlid that Bob has got. And this is like a polar water species that you could actually keep at room temperature and have it spawn if you're like in the 70s or 70 to 74 range upstairs in a house. But meanwhile, you can keep them downstairs in the basement in like 60-degree water. Have you done much research on these particular fish, Bob? Like, you would never think that when you started, you would be keeping such an interesting fish.
I hadn't done any research on them at all, other than to come across them researching other fish, in the past. But I really liked them when I saw them at this auction a couple of weeks ago, so I started looking at them just for the heck of them, just to learn a little bit about a new fish. And no one bid on them, and I thought, oh, so sad. And they weren't really bagged properly. They got rebagged at Mitchell Broom's house. He let us tour his fish room after that in Atlanta, and he ended up putting. There were six of them, and I came home with 8 bags. So that tells you how badly they were bagged. So it was kind of a rescue thing too, but I'm real happy with them, really pleased. So I've studied up on them, and they're fairly passive. They're not aggressive at all. So
Uh,
far,
they're actually kind of like a dwarf cichlid, but kind of drab. And what I've learned about them is like
exactly.
they're invasive in Florida, but
Mm, dark.
they're not like a major kind of predator type of fish that would make them, like they're not a banned species.
No, they're a Coruscant,
Yeah.
and
Uh,
but they're very hardy. They're up in Central Florida. I've read now.
mhm. And so, you know, when I read that, I'm going, well, why isn't this fish popular? Because you really don't need a heater. You, like you can keep it downstairs in your basement, and you can keep it upstairs during the summertime and have it spawn for you. It's sort of like the natural cycle of nature of Argentina.
Right.
It's not like a hot water kind of Xingu River, Rio Negro type of fish. You can actually keep some of these fish from South America just as easily as you can keep native North American fish.
Well, I have them in a heater with a heater right now because I put them in a tank, existing tank, with the intention of taking out my Cuban cichlid immediately, who's smaller than them. But it took me 3 or 4 days to snare him. He's really sharp, but he was beating on them pretty good. But they're fine now.
Yeah.
But since I started out with them, it's just one of the preset heaters on 78. I've left it on because she said she kept them about that, just to mimic where they were. But I'll probably pull that out or lower it eventually.
Yeah, because they do have such a wide range. Like they range down from Brazil all the way down to Argentina, apparently, but
Yep.
they can actually withstand quite a temperature change because they're on that side of South America that's a little bit cooler than the Atlantic coast.
They're a fish that really loves, as a lot do, but these guys really love. They've had their second water change just tonight, and they really love a little cooler water coming in. I usually put in a little cooler water on everything and just let it warm up a couple of degrees. So they're just a nice fish.
Well, cichlids do have quite a range from, shall we say, around the world, but in the New World cichlids, they basically range from Argentina all the way up naturally to Texas. But the Texas cichlid has been introduced to other waterways, and they're becoming invasive in that particular water. But like a lot of people do not think about Mexico either, and there's quite a few range of interesting cichlids and other live bearers in that area, and that's that's why I've got an interest in this particular fish, is because it can be kept in the water.
Are you aware, Chewy, of that Brandon has a breeding pair, cold
Yes, I'm
water?
very aware of what Brandon has got in his aquariums. I've actually seen the spawn of that particular cichlids. And it's due to my study of fish that I can't keep, like that I can't keep fish anyhow. But
Right,
if I legally can't keep fish, all I can do is study them.
right. But
And then,
that's part of the pleasure of keeping fish for me is learning about each fish.
right. So now I happen to mention this before the show. Okay. I have, I want, like, going to get into the topic of guppies. Okay. And this goes out to my buddy, our buddy Doug Gray. Okay. But I would like to make a trade with you, Bob. George and I would like to make a trade with you.
I told George the other night, or maybe a week ago, I wanted to do a trade, but I didn't have anything in mind. So, what you got going?
Okay, there's a specific kind of thing that I would ask you to do in this particular case. This is the part that I did not mention before, but I want to throw a genetic kind of thing experiment at you, and I'm sure that you could come up with a small aquarium to do it. I really love those pet shop platies, and
Yeah.
I would like to get two pairs of those, and one pair is for George's son. And I would like to teach him about platies because Dr. Joanne Norton is one of my mentors.
Oh,
And,
cool.
and basically, I would like to teach him about platies. And I think you being a member of the ALA, I think that that would be a really good fish for him to learn about.
It would definitely.
Yeah. So I would like a couple of pairs of those.
Awesome.
And of course, you know that you have got the guppy genetic that I'm interested in the most, and that was a strain of guppy that you developed.
Right.
So I would like two pairs of those. Is that possible?
What about a trio?
I
I'm
mean,
trying to build those guys up, and
I would, I would definitely like an extra male for a scientific kind
let
of.
me see how many I've got because I've culled them really heavily to get them as close to alike as I can. So I've got some, that are B grade. That's not what we want.
You can send a B grade male by itself and just write B on it, and that will be the fish that we will use for the experiment. How
Oh,
does,
okay.
how
Well,
does that?
I've got a bunch of them that I've culled out. I mean, they're beautiful fish, and they have the genes. They just didn't express as well as some of the others.
Well, let me get into tonight's subject. Doug Gray and I happen to know Philip Shattuck, the guy who wrote the book, several books on guppies, and also developed the see-through guppy and has got articles on ResearchGate and everything else. And basically, what he told me was it's not particularly the strains in the room, it's the genetics in the room and knowing what to deal with them. And a lot of Doug's videos is all about him making certain crosses and trying things out.
Yep.
Would you not agree with that, Bob?
Oh, yeah.
So, so there is a fish. Okay. Now you understand that Aquaballs has got the albino blue topaz that we sent to Ed as well. Okay. There is a fish that is on that guppy video that I put out. I am heavily interested in because it's not up to IFGA standards, but it's displaying a yellow and blue mosaic tail, and I would like to add that to the tail of George's line. What do you think of that idea?
What were you looking to cross it with?
Half black, blue mosaic. It's one of the guppies that Doug is working on currently.
Oh, okay.
And I don't want I don't want like the perfect strain. I want the genes.
Right.
And the male displays those genes that I happen to like because Doug's trying to make like the lace kind of tail, whereas I like the splotches and the and basically the mosaic look. And
So
so I
you're
would like to see that blue tail at the back of the topaz a little bit darker, showing signs of yellow, and whatever is black turns white.
okay. So you're looking more for pattern and color then.
Yes, yes,
I
exactly.
think that would be great. Sounds
Yes,
like that's exciting.
yes. So, like, I'm not looking for like the show quality. Like
No,
that takes time. Genetics is what I look for a lot of the times. Like, you
right.
can have a lot of fun learning about guppies just going into your store and go, this male displays this kind of coloration. I wonder what it would look like crossed with this female.
For sure.
And
So
this
I have
was
a question.
sure.
What did what does Bob wants from here? Anything he's interested in?
I hadn't forgot that, George. Don't worry. Is it my choice or?
You can choose whatever you want to choose, and you know we'll work it out. Just
Well,
know, just know that those the fish that George and I are ordered for a certain reason. Now, there's another side of this thing with the platies. Have you ever seen plume-tail platies, high-fin plume-tail platies?
yes, I
I would
have.
I would like for you to attempt to cross the two. I would love to see that with a high fin, but I would also like to see it with maybe a gold platinum gene over top of it with the platies,
Right.
right? And so I don't care what color you choose for the plume tail, but I would like to see that particular fish with the wag tail and a plume tail.
You're saying blue tail?
Plume tail.
Oh, okay. I'm glad I clarified that. Okay.
Yes, plume
I'm a
tail.
little hard of hearing.
Yes.
Okay.
And I do believe that you might be able to find some rather good pet shop stock from a very, like, you are still a member of the ALA, are you not, Bob?
I am. Yeah.
I think that we could actually help out one of the guys who lost a lot of fish during the this part in Texas. That would be the first place I would check for maculatus plumetail platies.
Yeah. I watch the auctions too, every newsletter. So,
Yes, yes. So that's what I would like for you to try to do.
okay. I'm on it.
You know, it's not like a big tank or anything else like that. I'd like to see you do something genetically speaking and have a little bit of fun.
Sounds like a fun project.
Now, on to angelfish. This particular show goes out to my mentor, Dr. Joanne Norton. There are not too many original members of the ALA left. I know that Charles is one. I know that Robert Ellerman, who speaks a lot on killifish, is one. I know that Brian Newman is still alive because he's my old boss who was on the original directorship of the ALA. So there are not too many of them left. Do you know that Dr. Norton wrote the early book on genetics, Bob? When it
Yeah.
came,
That was way back. Oh wow. I'm trying to remember. I think that book was out when I was a kid, wasn't it?
it basically almost came out when I went out on the road in the 70s.
Okay, so I was a teenager then. Okay.
Yeah, 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 yeah. You were just a year older than me. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. but she influenced the old school type of genetics with angelfish. But she also brought up a very, very interesting point about angelfish. We got that. She goes, you realize that there's angelfish that have got race populations in all of these different rivers over in South America.
Right.
So you look at the red-shouldered mature. I keep on forgetting its name, but it's got a red shoulder. Where do you think the koi gene came from?
I don't know.
Are you talking about the Maracapuru redback?
Yes,
I've
that's
got the,
Oh,
I have the redbacks, you know.
I
yes.
like those.
Look very, very closely at that red on the back, on the side. All that's being done is they've grabbed that gene and put it into koi angelfish.
Oh,
No,
Good
I,
to know.
angelfish displays that. Each one of these wild type angels is sort of like we have got the Caucasian race and we've got the Asian race, but we can't really call them hybrids because we're not really crossing species.
right.
But in language, we have called share a hybrid, right?
Yes.
Because we are crossing race populations. And this is how all of these discus colors have evolved. Each river system has got their own wild discus. A lot of your crosses involve heckles to this, but there are natural crosses, natural hybrids in those waterways. There's one river that Jim Carmark was telling me about that he goes, it's definitely a cross between a heckle and a green discus. It's not a
Well,
species, but it survives in the wild.
I've
It
been
has,
watching my pedigree. I call them angels. I've got another tank of just pretty angels that I pick up along the way. But I've been watching for pairings so I could pull them out. I've got tanks waiting. And last night, one of my koi was guarding the intake sponge over the hang on back, and nobody allowed near except two Philippine blues, and they were helping guard too. So I'm like, what's going on here? So never did see a spawn, and still don't have one today. But the three of them are guarding that sponge.
it's weird that there's three of them.
I did a little short of it too. I'm like, what's going on?
I just took out my larger Avatar Angels into a 120 gallon, and I already have a spawn with bunch of eggs. I'm debating to take off. It's on the broadleaf, what you call it, jungle valve on the big, very broad leaf, and so there's a lot of eggs on it, over 100 something. So I'm like debating to take the pair out and separate them because I lost my original pair. The female first died, and then the male. For I have no idea why. They were in a big 60-gallon in the community tank. That happens sometimes.
Yeah.
So along that lines of platies, you know, Pam is always looking for things to make go for her auction. Bob, can you please send Pam a picture of those platies?
Of the plume tail.
No, the ones that you have.
Oh yeah, she's seen them a million times.
They're gorgeous.
Yeah,
They-
she's seen them a million times.
They're gorgeous platies.
They are.
I can think of no other little platy that she could basically use, and then you can say, "Well, I allowed her to do this, and then she can allow me to have the digital thing." Would that be fair?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I just I just picked up a couple pairs of them several months ago and up near Tennessee Aqua at his fish store, and they had tons of fry, and the fries are having fries now. So I gave Skipper some, and his were doing well, I believe.
yeah. You know, I actually really loved them when I saw them. I was going, that's pretty good for pet shop quality platies.
Yeah, I couldn't pass them up.
Yeah, yeah. So, back on the subject of angelfish, there are like generally three species, and currently they're looking to rename one of them because it's not close enough to the other one. There is what is called the ultim angelfish. You know that there's several different species of several different populations of ultim angelfish.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, the Rio Negro ultim is considered the toughest one to breed and the toughest one to keep. The Peruvian ultim is actually a very, very nice fish, but it's a lot more easier to breed. Have you done any study on any of the other species of angelfish, Bob?
No, the Altums, I didn't realize till maybe 5 years ago that there were different collection points and that they were different,
Yeah,
as well as different parts of the river. But um, I like the Peruvians out of those that I looked at.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
They're the starting ultim. That's what they are. It's the
yeah,
start. Yeah,
I've dabbled a little bit, have a couple left, but I got a group of the Bulgarian greens, and they're kind of pricey. I got a great deal on them at a local fish store, and then I met the guy that had bred them and traded them to the fish store at a swap recently. But I'm down to two of them out of eight, so they're not they're delicate for sure.
yeah. Well, I think that that's got to do with kind of inbreeding and all of that kind of stuff that goes on in the fish.
And when I was back to the store, I hadn't been back for maybe 3 or 4 months. It's a couple hours from here, but still, it's a local store. He had lost almost all of his, and what he had left looked worse than mine. So I don't know.
So,
Definitely genetic.
have you seen any of the other wild type uh, angelfish like the Rio Nane and the other?
Not not personally, but I'm in a couple of angel fish groups with people that really know their angels, and a couple of Facebook pages too I follow. So I love to look at them for sure.
There's some really beautiful wild angels over in Poland. Let me tell you, like they seem to concentrate a lot on wild genes in Europe.
Yes.
You notice that?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would like Aquaballs to talk a little bit about breeding the various different scalars that he has bred now.
Awesome.
Well, I haven't bred the Scolara, but I have the Scolara mixed in my breed. If you wanna to know about those, so I'm sure all of the ones I have here they have a Scolara. That's the domestic one, the mix. I don't have anything special, but in my avatars, I believe there is some kind of a Bulgarian in there because I'm looking at some of them. They have this beautiful Bulgarian, like the black on them on the tips, on the bottom, and the whole entire fin. Have you seen the Bulgarian blacks, right? So they look like seal points. The seal points. They look almost like it, but these are avatars. I know when they get bigger and older, they lose the some of the black. They become more blue, and so I bred those. And there's other ones like the the dentum angels, the albino. Those got mixed. Scalara albino to the wild one you were talking about. I believe it could be the Peruvian. I don't think it's the Altum. It's the Altum Angel, but it's like the Peruvian one, the one that it's easier to breed. So they have crossed that one to get that albino line too, like
Right.
back and forth, because the wild one very rare to find albino is a minute. So it's very rare to in the wild to see albino. Like we were talking about neon tetras. I have albino. Very rare in the wild to have those.
Yeah, very few times do you see an albino, but it does occur in nature. Okay, it's just that to develop albino lines, you have to know your genetics to basically stabilize the line so that it only throws albinos, and that's actually very hard to do.
I mean,
So
a lot
continue.
of us are new in the hobby. Like the breeding on the angels, it's been around for many years, and I don't know every one of the lines what's mixed with what. You know, I'm not 100% genetic masters on that part.
I actually bred angels about 30 years ago, 20 to 30. I did it for about 10 years while I was still in Florida. And I had quite a nice little operation going. But they were just veiled silver angels, just domestic angels. Uh, but they were nice angels.
So I would actually like to tell you a story about my experience of angelfish.
Go ahead.
Okay, while I was growing up, I fell in love with angelfish. I fell in love with silver angelfish. Okay, like the actual wild type scalar that is found in the Rio Negro. I loved that fish, but I could never find a pair of them. But my boss bred silver males, and he would sell them to various different breeders, and those various different breeders would breed them. And then when they moved on to like the double dark blacks that were coming out in the late like 67 area of time period, like when I was around 9 or 10, that is when I got my first pair of silver angelfish, and I can trace it back to my boss, to my boss's original pair of angelfish.
Wow.
Yes. And back in 1970, 75? No, 73, Dr. Joanne Norton came up to Calgary to judge our international fish show. I had nothing to go into it except for my pair of angelfish, but they were looking after their spawn. And so I did not enter that year. So I got to be Dr. Norton's judge's assistant.
Nice.
Nice.
Okay. So as she's judging the show, she's taking me around and she would ask me questions. It was actually quite odd. She goes, "Do you like this fish? Why do you like this fish?" She actually spent time with a junior member teaching him how to judge certain.
Nice.
Hey,
She did not have to do that with angelfish because I had the original president of the Calgary Aquarium Society, long may he rest in peace, my boss. He taught me everything I knew about angelfish by the time I was 10 years old.
That's nice.
So I knew exactly what I wanted to look for in my pair of angelfish. I knew exactly, like, he gave me like a list of guys who had his fish. Okay. He goes, "I don't want to give you my fish because I want to see other people's genetics in your hands." So he gave me a list of guys and went, "Here, take this with you, phone them, see how much they want." One of them happened to be one of my friend's fathers. and he was trying to make room for his big pair of blacks, right? Like he had two pairs of double blacks at that time, double G blacks. And I'm going like, oh, I wonder how much he wants for it. He goes, well, you cut the lawn and paid me $5 and they're yours. A silver bale pair of angelfish that Dr. Norton saw when she came over to visit my mom because Dr. Norton's degree was in botany. And separating my mom away from Dr. Norton was impossible because they both had the passion for African violets. So, how I would get my fish sometimes through Dr. Norton would be my mom sending her leaves of some of her new plants. It was like an exchange system.
Right.
Yeah, and it worked out really, really well. So I learned an awful lot from the ALA. My boss was a director, like my pet shop boss was the director, and like he knew so much about live bears. I didn't know where to start. Like he was keeping all of the weird kind of like anablaps, and all of those kind of wild types. But I was into, oddly enough, I mix of phosphorus. I don't care what you hybridize with. You know, like there's the Texas University, Austin, Texas University, where they have the Zephorphorus Center, where they've got stocks and stocks of wild stock that was set up by Dr. Myron Gord. Did you ever run across that name in your history books, Bob?
I don't remember that name.
Dr. Myron Gordon was like the scientist that from the United States that was heavily, heavily involved in swordtails. Like he was sort of the influence, shall we say, of the American Light Bearers. He died before we were born.
Okay.
But a lot of the material that you will find from the 50s, especially, was done by Dr. Gordon. Are you familiar with the University of Texas, the Forest Center?
I'm not. No.
It is quite the place. It's right on the Austin campus.
Okay.
Several of the people that are involved in that facility are actually ALA members.
I'm going to check it out though.
Yeah. So that is why I've got that is why I have a passion for angelfish, especially wilds. Wilds are so beautiful when they're kept in like a biotope aquarium.
Now, I want to ask you a question about the angels. I have never done this. So, do you think, Chewy, is it possible to breed angelfish? Let's say you have 120-gallon, 12 to 15 angels in it. Can you breed in a colony without the fry being eaten by the other? Yeah, I know it's going to be aggression, but is that possible?
It is possible to do it with tetras. I don't know if it's possible to do it with the other angelfish.
Because I do see aggression. Like a pair that bred, they don't want nobody around. At least like good 2 to 3 feet. Then the tank is only 5 feet long.
My
Right.
So
my angelfish grew up like some of my angelfish grew up with tetras and not cardinals but neons,
yeah,
and, and I found them not to be a good tank because they end up as angelfish food. Like once you've lost your first group, like you've grown them up together, As soon as your adult neon dies, you don't replace it with the small neons. It's a
Okay.
big mistake. It was one of the it was the biggest mistake that I made in my youth, and the pet shop owner would not cover my loss. And he said that he would not, and he was my mentor. He said, "No, you won't be able to do that." But I insisted, and I insisted. He goes, "Oh, man, go ahead, learn." I learned. Yeah,
I
you know,
don't
all fish with adult angelfish, they won't last long.
I don't know if angelfish are one of the cichlids. I know Jack Dempsey's are because I have the living proof. They spawned once, and that spawn has never spawned. None of those offspring, and I've got them down to a few dozen now in that tank. I've given a lot away, sold a lot of them, and held on to some of them too. There's a gold morph in there with them, but so I don't let those go if I can help it. But they have never, ever, ever paired off, and that's because Jack Dempsey's, I think Green Terrors do it. They have a colony mentality. So
Mm,
if they're in a full tank and I mean everything's good and they have food and clean water, they're not going to spawn because they know the colony's set. I don't
I
know if
see.
angels will do that or not either. I don't know.
No, I've never done that type of cichlid, like the inbreeding colonies. I have done with the African type. Okay, like mm, I began to lose interest in the Central American cichlids due to every person and his dog has them
Yeah,
in Calgary, and there was no way of getting rid of them.
right.
Okay, so like my boss could only choke back so many Jack Dempseys, and he said, "You're going to have to start feeding your Jack Dempseys to the Oscars."
Yep. I know that the Crebensis, specifically the giant Crebensis, I got those from Dan, and I don't know if he's ever bred for him or not, but I found that once they bred, there was that the same thing. It was a colony breeding, and
Um,
I wanted them to breed 3 times. They did 2 for me, and I was going to let them breed a third time just to make the point before I ever let any go, and they never have. None of them have. So
that's crazy.
The fun thing that I loved about my Silver Angel was they would raise their own fry with tetras in the tank and everything. They would literally look after them to like almost like a dime size.
yeah.
Like so as soon as they become the dime size, there I am going off selling them back to my boss. Here, you want some Silver Angels? And basically it helped me pay for school books and hockey gear.
That's right.
You know, but when it came to my marble pair that I replaced in my Jack Dempsey tank with, my boss went, "Well, why don't you start breeding marbles?" They would not ever look after their own young. I don't know why. Every pair I've had of those, I've always had to artificially hatch them.
Well, George and Chewy, I have a question. What do you each think about the um, thought that angels have to learn if they're a first time pair? They have to learn to take care of their fry rather than it being um, a normal behavior, an instinct.
I My thoughts on the subject is if you're after money, you're gonna be hatching your own angelfish. If you are like because but you've got to be aware that you are now the color of that angelfish. Parents call their own fry. Cichlids call their own fry up to a certain age. Everybody goes, "Oh, they're picking on them." No, they're testing them. Have you ever thought of that idea that they are actually testing their fry to
Oh
make
yeah, yeah. I know.
sure?
It took me a while to realize that, but yeah, they do definitely.
Yes. So like my silvers would probably kill like about maybe 10 or 12 fry, but you could notice that they were not like strong fish. So they were personally doing the call work themselves rather than you, the breeder, doing it. But then you get into the factor of greed, and I see that a lot in the hobby.
Well, they want to, rather than take care of 100 fish and 20 are slow and going to get the others in trouble or eaten because they're slow or weak or not as big. They're going to cull them out so they can get those other 80, you know, to
Right,
juvenile size. So,
right. But the thing is not many do that. That's how come you see, shall we say, plecos with pug noses, right? Like, like you know our friend Jay in Aquarium. He's always talked about the pug nose uh, thing about plecos,
yeah,
and that's caused by inbreeding, not adding new genetics, not even attempting to add new genetics. That's one thing guppy breeders do know about. Their basic generation time is 7 years before they start adding new blood. You've seen signs of uh, guppies falling apart. Look at those um, guppies that Doug has that were bred by Stan Schubel, those reds. Look at
mm,
like they're nothing like what they should look like. I
right.
see that all the time out there. I see people calling people that have been dead for like a long time the guy's name, and very literally, very few people can bring up a standard of like let's say an Ed Chiasson red guppy. Luke was involved in the development of it, but it was actually developed by Ed. Okay, and he actually holds the trademark on the name Full Red Guppy, and I see that a lot in this industry. Like Luke died, fish change over that time period.
Right.
In the wrong person's hands, they can literally fall apart. Look at how much work Doug has put into, shall I say, his full red guppies. Because I do know that everybody calls them full reds, but you know, Luke's been gone for a while, and I was a very good friend of Luke. Luke liked to listen to rock and roll. Luke would listen to my rock and roll show and hardly listen to my fish show. He goes, "There's very few things that you can teach me about fish. If you do a show on this, I'll listen to it. But do you think I'm going to listen to your guppy shows? No."
Well, you remember, I'm sure that blue Robux blues are one of or half of the component of my guppies that you want.
Yes, I know. I know that the genes are there to work with, and that's all that I care about.
Right. But that was one of the ways I decided early on to preserve the genes and do something else with them.
Exactly.
It's
Exactly.
a nice fish. I mean,
But think about how much work the Doug Gray has gone to make sure that that full red looks very, very nice. I had the same fish. I got mine through Philip. Beautiful fish, right? So, like, but in the wrong hands, colony breeding for so long, you're going to bring out the worst traits in the fish, not the best.
A lot of people just won't cull or hit cull
Yeah,
effectively. They just won't do it.
yeah, yeah. Like, and then they think that it's worth the money, and it really isn't. You're just buying the gene.
Yep.
Like there's nothing to show for it. Like this was kind of like the thing that I like about Doug is that he experiments with genes, but he also brings up his fish to an IFGA level before he sells them.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Unless you are specifically ask him, I just want the gene. It's like I'm not going to judge them over like a fish that doesn't reach IFGA standards. No, I just want the gene. Right? If the breeder that I work with wants to take it to that level, that is up to him. Right? I want to see what the gene does.
Yeah. Not me. I'm just a I guess a gentleman breeder. Not always a gentleman, but just a hobbyist.
Right.
Just for the fun, for my pleasure.
Well, that's what I was all about. I wanted to have fun with guppies. That was my thing. Like Philip went, you're not getting IFGA standard, and then you're not going to get like the fish at this price that will compete with the breeders over in Asia. But it's a great representation of their fish. You have to put in the work for it if you want anything to succeed. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. And I just realized that I have another strain. I wouldn't call him a strain yet, but another little project I'm working on, and those are where his blues are involved. With the ones that I'm going to send, they were an American green, I think Stevens,
Yes.
and and then just a
Even
little.
the American greens, and that's why I went. I
Yeah,
want those fish.
that's what mine are. That's half of their genes, not the other guy's blues. But then just a little Petco. Um, that's where the colors came in.
Right.
That little Petco guppy, so the male.
And the reason why I want those fish is to cross with also that line of um, blues as well. You see, I had a cross between Luke Robach's Hawaiian blues and Philip Shattuck's Silverado, which was a magenta gene. Okay, like not compared to Doug's. This was Philip Shattuck's Silverado. Okay, and it was crossed with the um, Hawaiian blue, and you should have seen like the magenta gene is a modifying gene. It modifies color. So can you imagine like a Hawaiian blue Moscow with a little bit darker shade of a topaz blue in its body with a big blue tail?
That's why I have so few that I would, consider a completed strain. Well, I mean, there's a couple dozen probably of them, but I mean, just perfect like I want them all to be because of that magenta gene. Of course, they've got the magenta in their name. But yeah,
Yeah,
so many variations of it, even at like generation 7 now.
yeah, yeah. It's an interesting gene to work with, and same with albino. Like albino is like the recessive, and magenta is actually a breakdown of the Moscow gene that occurred over in Malaysia or one of the other Asian continents. And it came from a line called something dance. And Philip brought them in and then developed his strain. and then began crossing the strain with various different applicable fishes that he wanted to see what they looked like. The dominant uh, the dominant side of the gene ended up with a friend of mine in Boston, and I got the recessive one. Mine was powder blue, but his was blue with a red tail, like a dark blue. And it was basically sold by one of the dealers here, Jason, from, from, you know what I'm talking about, do you? Your buddy,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And so when you when I saw that fish, I'm going, I know the genes in it because I saw the picture of the other side of it. And Philip goes, which one do you like the best? And I said, the powder blue one with a big blue tail, because the other one has a blue body with a red tail. Interesting how that color wheel works between blue and red. Isn't that an interesting factor about guppies, Bob?
Very much so.
Yeah. You know, like you need the Asian blotch gene to get out the red that is coming into a strain, and it comes out of Japan. Like all of this knowledge is in Philip's books, and Doug has got like the $100 copy uh, of one of those books, and Philip no longer sells them. They're rare.
All the shiny pictures too.
Yep.
This is the snake on my logo, by the way, guys.
Let me see. I got the chat up. Oh wow. Awesome.
It's a genetic striped coral glow,
Beautiful.
and it's on the logo. It look good, right? It matches the color and everything.
It looks
Yeah.
great.
When he was baby, he was more colorful. But you know how it is with the ball pythons. When the bigger they get, the colors change and they turn into something else.
Oh,
These are
for sure.
gorgeous.
That one's Pam's, isn't it?
So
No,
I'm
I've
teasing.
I've really enjoyed today's program because
Oh, me too.
you know,
so
like
did I. Thank you very much.
like, and especially the trait. That's too cool. You know, like I couldn't have asked for better.
I think George should show us some of his snakes now, just as a.
Yes, that
I'm
was
teasing George.
was to make it around an hour long program, and then it's free time because that's
Well,
just the
I
way.
can do that few minutes, not too long, because I got to go in there and get them one by one. I can show you guys few snakes.
I'm just teasing you, George. If people want, I love to look at snakes. You know, I'll look at them. I'm going to get up and get my little girl. She's been begging me to come and get her that new little cinnamon
I
pink
can
snake.
I can show you. So this one here, it has like a very light blushing going all the way to the back. It's like the snake on the photo. So I have the one that Pam's about to take from me, and she hasn't called me yet, but that's okay. It's hers. I put it aside.
She's making sure she's got everything she needs and she's got stuff
Perfect.
ordered and yeah, we've been talking
Only thing
about
is,
it.
I don't want to send it in when it's really hot,
Right.
so we don't kill it.
No, no. She's not in a rush. She wants to get it when it's safe and when she's got everything ready.
And can I tell you another thing, Bob?
Sure.
Do not be surprised I'm using a fish that you would never think of me grabbing from your channel. Want to take a guess what it is?
Uh, from for video, you mean?
Yes.
Let me think. What would I be surprised about? Hmm. And knowing you, it's either the pacu or the giraffe catfish.
You were right on the first one.
Really?
The
I hope.
Pacu inhabits basically all of the river systems of South America and has adapted to both the harder water and the softer water. That is why it's so invasive.
I'm hoping that I have mine gone in the next month, if not before. But I still haven't. Ethan has a contact with through his fish store with the Tennessee Aquarium there in Chattanooga, and I'm hoping that they'll take them. I don't want them to pay me anything for them. I would have no idea
Oh,
what
you're
they're
getting
worth.
rid of them now?
Do what?
You're getting rid of them now?
Well, I have to soon. I can put it off and put it off, but they're ready for a bigger tank now. I mean, they've got 6 feet between them, and they're at each end now. They get along great. I hand feed them, but they really need more than a 180. They're almost 14-inch fish. Ooh, that's pretty.
Do you want to know what size of tank I think that they belong in? Like a
Uh,
1,000 gallon.
1,000. Well, it'd be a 10,000 gallon. They go in if they'll take them with other pocket. They need that. They need a big tank. What is
So this
that more chewy?
this
I
is
mean,
the one. This is the one. I think those are either gold blush Mojaves or it could be cinnamon. It's one of them, but I'm not 100% sure because the daddy, when I bred it, it threw me some crazy stuff. So I was sold as Mojave, and he looks more darker than the baby. So I can't tell you what it is, but it's a beautiful snake, and it's a one of those. If you mix two of them, let's say this is a female, if she gets another Mojave and breed it to his, you get the blue eye Lucy, or lesser, you get blue eye Lucy also in a
do you
the
know?
gold.
Do you know Moonstone? Do you know Kim Aquaballs?
Say the name again.
Moonstone.
Moonstone. Is that Moonstone? That's
Uh,
all it is.
it's Moonstone Reptiles. But she had fish, but I don't think she does anymore. And she's Kim. She's Kimberly um, something Cooperman is her
Not
Facebook
too
page.
familiar. Not too familiar.
Yeah, she's got some gorgeous, gorgeous balls. That's all she has.
There's
No,
hearts right there. Nice little hearts right there. There's a nice little heart. Cam saw this one. She fell in love with it. This is the one, and I have the
oh, it
boy too.
is. That's
Yeah,
the
this
one
is
Pam's getting.
yeah. Look how beautiful the spots and the markings are on it.
Yeah, it's beautiful for sure.
Bob, when I first held my baby like this in my hand, that was the best feeling on the planet. And I'm sure every other kid that grabs their first ball python in their head, they feel that feeling.
Yeah,
After you have many of them, you don't feel that way anymore. But when you hatch your babies, that's the same feeling you get when you cut those eggs, look inside, and when they come out first, and you feed them that first meal. There's nothing can replace that. So it's very enjoyable. It's just like the fish, but it's a lot harder work, a lot more work. For me, that's how I look at it because they're gorgeous creatures. I mean, look at them.
yeah, yeah. The maintenance to me is a lot easier. And I've just decided today, just this evening, in fact, that I'm going to close down for my plexiglass tanks that I had rainbow fish in. I've been moving those out, and I've got the four across the top of that rack empty. The four in the bottom are still, but that'll make perfect small reptile. I just have to figure out how I'm going to cover them, but that's no problem.
But the problem with me, I'm having the maintenance is not the issue. The problem is the find the let's say the bedding for all the tanks. I need 50 some of it. I use paper. I use bedding. Paper is really good because you can replace it, and it's still shortage on the paper. I can't find them everywhere. There's some expensive one cut up for you. Those are all special orders.
Have you checked like at the newspapers, even the small independent like newspaper?
I
A lot of
can't
times,
find newspapers any longer. I used to use newspaper. I don't recommend newspapers because there's ink on them. Now, I recommend paper, the brown paper only.
mm,
So they don't have any type of ink or
right.
chemicals or anything. It's a organic brown paper. Not the one that has wax on one side and the other side is brown. No, that's not good. I don't think that's gonna work.
I would
Uh,
think the wax would get on them too.
the wax, right? So I would get just the paper that absorbs the whatever they do, and when the minute you see it, you have to change.
Bob, I put a message for you in behind chat
For
for you,
me,
yes, to read.
Okay, guys, you wanna end the show?
It's your show, Aquaballs. You're hosting
I
these
I
shows.
have a guest here about to. I'm gonna have him work some things here. I'm changing a lot in the room. I brought in my old mud skipper's tank. I'm what is it called? Reviving the tank, but it's not gonna be for mud skippers. I'm doing a DOOA system, if you know what that is, with a water falling like a waterfall style in the back. It's not a waterfall, but it's like water falling from the back, and
yeah,
there's a lot of plants growing in the background. Pretty much,
that'll be nice.
yeah. So I'm gonna try, try to do some boost, some anubias, some moss, different types of plant. It's a big tank.
George, can I get you to sort of tell Bob what is going on with the Italian Cichlid Association's uh, Rio Negro tank that is sort of my tank, but it is technically okay. Now here's something that I want to talk to you about, Bob. Why don't why does not the TM Fish Mafia throw out a challenge to keep a Rio Negro biotope?
A challenge for what?
Like, let's just say that we would like to see like videos and pictures, that kind of thing of Rio Negro fish. And we would also like to see pictures and videos of angelfish. And we'd sort of like to put up some fish from Aquaball stock as a prize.
Right.
Okay? Like, sort of like, let's try to help out the rainforest fish and that type of thing by sort of like making people understand what the Rio Negro is. Like,
Oh yeah.
it's like a soft water type of black water type of thing. And I don't know if you know this or not, but I've been a part of the Boston Aquarium Society and I've known Scott Dowd and Jim Carmark for over 15 years. They were regular guests, like Scott Dowd was a regular guest and Jim Carmark was my co-host. Jim Carmark was a co-founder of Project Piaba. So my tank is going to be exclusively, okay, it's not my tank, it's the Italian Cichlid Association's tank. We're setting it up as a tribute for the Italian Cichlid Club from the LA gang of the TM Mafia, from our part of the organization. Okay, the LA gang, right? So I'd like to send out a
Ooh.
sort of like challenge to all of the TM members, no matter where they are.
I'll get with Ed about that. He'll be
Yeah.
real good with.
Is that a female?
It's supposed to be, but I haven't tried to sex her.
Look, I believe this snake has a genetic stripe in it, and you think it's a pinstripe, so it could be a pinstripe genetic stripe.
They told me it was. Say they told me it was cinnamon pinstripe.
So that could be, that's true, yeah, but because the cinnamon with the pinstripe can react like that. But the pinstripe has patterns, Bob. If you looked at the pinstripes, they
Yeah,
have like little lines. I don't see the lines. Maybe the camera is not showing it. You can see it. Can you see any lines like the pinstripe has on it?
lines like
The pinstripe has like a little spider-looking lines all over the belly where
no,
the alien heads
yes,
are.
yeah. If I can figure out where the camera is. They're getting a little darker. I don't know if that's what you mean. She's got those.
No. So that one looked like, to me, it's a genetic stripe. I can bring my female genetic stripe, show you the my big girl, but mine's a pastel genetic stripe, and then this one assembling that one to me. And the G stripe is a recessive genetic. I could be wrong, of course, you know. Uh,
Well, I don't. I
well,
don't know. I just.
so if you ever breed it in the future, and if the babies don't come up, let's say any pinstripe in there, cinnamon you might see. You know, cinnamon looks like the one I just brought you for the one I was holding, like the one for Pam. It's more brownish snake. And then if you don't have any pinstripe in it, pinstripe totally you can tell. So let's say you bred another gene to it, you get like pinstripe with that other gene. Let's say pastel. You get pastel with pinstripes, and that one called something. There's a name for that one. Jigsaw, I think it's called. Jigsaw. Pastel pinstripes called jigsaw. So if you look at them up, they're gonna have patterns on it. Very beautiful patterns. I always wanted the pinstripe. I don't have it. I brought one, and I got it from a wrong breeder. It died at me young age. So that one to me looks like a genetic stripe, but again, I could be wrong. In the
Um,
future, if you breed it, we'll find out.
Ed and I are hoping to go. It's 4 or 5 weeks over in Knoxville, just an hour and a half to Repticon. Um,
Hmm.
and if he's up to it and I'm up to it, but we're looking forward to that. I've been wanting to go to one, but I'm going to take her with me. She's quite the baby. She's really, really sweet. She
I
likes to
would
be
be careful.
close.
Be careful. Cross contamination, just like a
Yeah,
fish. You know, just be
yeah,
careful. Don't let people
yeah.
handle it.
You know,
Alcohol.
I had a scare when I got my agama lizard, and before I'd even got the female, found a female to go with him because I thought he had mites or something. And oh my God, you can't get them wet. It's a nightmare. But it turns out he did not. But I was wearing gloves. I was scrubbing my hands between each habitat, and it turns out he didn't. So yeah, I'm real. I've got sanitizer sitting over there. So
If you have one snake, it's all good. But if you have multiple, you like yourself and me, it's we're in big trouble. Like the fish, you know, fish tank.
yeah,
We bring them. We have to quarantine the fish for 6 weeks, just like that. The snakes the same way. 6 weeks we have to quarantine before we even enter it to our room, so they don't have any kind of respiratory problems that will kill everybody.
exactly. And I've been real lucky with that. So I think I'm doing it right. But
I've been very lucky.
I never hold more than one snake a day. Never, never. Because I let them crawl on me and I carry them around and show them the fish while and they watch. I mean, they're interested in the colors or whatever. But I carry them around and let them watch while I'm feeding fish or stuff. So I keep them
By,
out. I'll let
by
them
the
on.
way, I always wanted to make this logo. This was our first logo idea, but there wasn't the person that I could have talked to and tell him that what I wanted. You know, what's his name? Very nice fish hobby person. His name is DPK. I believe you guys know
Yeah.
who I'm talking about. He's the
Yeah.
one that made my first logo. I really love it. It's beautiful. I have still like few stickers here and there, but this one is something so it will resemble what it means. You know, that one just showed the snake and it says aqua balls. So people were like, "What is this all about?" So this one at least it will show what is it about. You know, it's good.
That's Carlos. He made the label I have right now, too. DPK is Carlos. What you doing?
Okay, guys.
So, what do you have coming up tomorrow on your particular program, Bob?
Oh, the Tennessee Fish Mafia.
Yeah.
It's Dylan, Veteran Aquatics. You know, he's friends with Liz and Scott, King and Queen of Cichlids, and in the
Oh,
same club. And also Susie Q knows him. They're in the same club. So looking forward to that. He doesn't do hardly any, live streams for people and stuff. So, and he has some of those Jack Dempsey's that I got. He got some from me. I wouldn't charge him. I just took some. So he still has some. So he's a real nice guy, Dylan. So that should be great. And he's promised a tour. I really think somebody had this snake for a while, but they said she was new. And I got her at PetSmart. I went in and the girl recognized me and she's like, we got this beautiful cinnamon stripe. Just came in today and she took her out. I said, I can't get another. I'm not looking for any more ball pythons. I'm getting another. That she's squeezing me. She always squeezes me. And she got her out and I said, oh my God, let me hold her. And she's just like this all the time. She'll fall asleep if I quit moving around with her. But I really think somebody had her and brought her back, but they said no. She's so super tame.
you know that Aquaballs is going to try to breed albino cardinals.
Gonna breed what now?
It's going to try to breed albino cardinals.
Albino cardinal sense.
Nice. George, I don't want to keep you all night because I can talk about fish and reptiles forever. And you're going to be doing something with us soon, I heard. So we'll
Yes.
get to spend a lot
And
of
you
time.
just let me know, no problem.
Yep. All right.
Okay, guys. You guys have a good night. Thank you for everybody coming up. Thank you
Say
for everybody in the chat.
Thank you, Chewy. I've enjoyed the conversation
it was great. Thank you.
and the info.
Good night, guys.